All right, looks like we're live. Hello, everybody out there. Welcome back to the Erasmus Expeditions. We are at session 11 this evening with our Egyptian-themed D&D 5th edition campaign On the Rise. And tonight is going to be a lot of fun. We've got some changes kind of afoot, a little bit of some cast adjustments, but the story is going to keep rolling on, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I apologize ahead of schedule here. The home team of baseball is currently in the playoffs, and there's a very tense game going on. People are watching it in the other room, so if there is screaming, nobody's dying, usually in baseball, but just forewarn. So yeah, I'm Jeremy, and I'm glad that you guys are coming in, giving us a watch, and I'm joined this evening by 5 fantastic players, and I'm going to pitch it over to them. Baseball pun, so that they can give us their outros or outros. Man, I'm way ahead of myself. Their intros, and then we'll get this ball rolling. All right, so let's have Trevor lead us off.
You first, huh? Dang, so preferenced. Okay, good evening, everybody. I am Trevor. I am playing a gnome druid.
There you go.
Use words, named Rith von Schwarzenomen. He's not from the land of Baklabesh, but he's there now. And unfortunately, the guy that brought him to Baklabesh is, well, dead. And he's a bit of a shapeshifter, as is all druids, and he's in the middle of combat with Eli's character, Shava, and Khalid's character. Jeff's character, Khalid. I'm going to get this right eventually.
Excellent. Okay, and next up is Mike.
My name is Michael. I missed the last session. Been evacuated from Hurricane Harvey. What up? But anyway, I am playing Noctos. He is a Mahan dwarf, which is a desert dwarf in Rostfin, Jeremy's homebrew world, where I do all of my gaming. Jeremy's the only person that I game online with. We have a weekly game, and I'm currently the DM of that game. So this is a rare treat for me to be online. It's a medium that I am getting more familiar with, but and that I like. But so it's nice to play with some additional players. Eli played with you before, so it's good to see you again. And Brandon's nice to meet you.
Very close. Not Brandon. It is Baron.
Baron. I'm sorry.
Like the title, like the landed noble.
Oh.
As long as you say something with a B, I'll get it.
Let's throw the ball to you next, Baron.
What's up, everybody? I'm Baron. I am one of the new cast members tonight. This is my first session in this campaign, and I will be playing Vat Samushi. He is a Naga, which I don't know too much of the lore, but I'm sure we'll be getting into that in the games coming. I run a channel called RWD Gaming. We do tabletop gaming, and we dabble into some PlayStation and whatnot. I mostly am tabletop, so if you are interested in something like that, come check us out.
Absolutely. There is a link to Baron's channel that I just added to the description of this video. You should be able to find it down below. And speaking of links to channels, the next 2 guests also have channels, and I will let them introduce them. We will go with Jeff next.
Yes, I'm Jeff. I have a YouTube channel. It's called Encounter Balance. Feel free to check that out if you're so inclined. I also have the great luxury of being able to do a podcast as well that I do with my dear friend Jeremy here. It's called The Dudes of Yore. So check that out either on YouTube or on SoundCloud as well. We should be getting the next episode out soon-ish. Yeah, I am playing Khalid. He is a assassin, I guess you would say, though he hasn't been such for a long time. He's kind of grouped with this party out of necessity. He was wandering the desert and needed to not die, which is a good reason to to go with other people. And he's just kind of trying to figure out this now mission that he's been plunged into with this group.
Absolutely. And last but certainly not least, we have Eli.
Hey everybody, nice to be here. I'm Eli. I have a channel over on YouTube. I'm also the head honcho of the Mythic Gazetteer. We're publishing a book for Savage Worlds, the Blackwood Errantry Codex, and it comes soon, so keep an eye out for that on Drive-Thru RPG. And I'll be playing Shava of the Shifting Sands. She's a desert elf, a Navendar they're called, and she is a rogue who is also an acolyte of this sand art cleric, if you will. And just met up with the party last session, so I'm relatively new to this as well.
Absolutely. Okay, so yeah, one last piece of advice. I guess you could call it advice, business. This is an adult channel. These are adults, at least I'm fairly certain. And there's going to be adult language. There's going to be mature topics. It's just kind of the thing that happens in my games. So if that is the kind of thing that bothers you, sorry, but you really should just go ahead and head out now. So with all of that out of the way, unless you guys can think of any last minute business, questions, comments, concerns? No. Okay. Then the sands of the hourglass begin to pour. So, as far as what happened last session, the party had finished their business in the human capital of Messhiba and had exited the Temple of Nerul and the city proper back to where their sand sailing ship had been left in order to depart. But instead, they found the captain of the ship and their former adventuring partner, Syviis, as well as the head of the slaves turned crew, had been cut down and murdered, and the ship had been stolen. The wounds upon their bodies were slash marks that had been cauterized at the edges, a fairly telltale sign that these atrocities had been committed by none other than the Ink of Messhiba, who was discovered to be an associate of Khalid's at some point in his past. Although it seems perhaps the tensions might keep them from being friends. And about the time that they were trying to figure out what to do next, a Navendar stumbled upon them, and Shava managed to guide them back into the Navendar tent city, where the sand elves, the desert elves, usually kind of established their tribe outside the city walls, leading them back to where she had been staying since the rest of her tribe had left or had been killed. Shava took the party back to meet her mentor, the Sand Drawer, a prophetic seer, if you will, who draws in the sand intricate designs, and had been ill as of late, coming in and out of consciousness. And when they finally made their way back to him, they found that he had passed, but not before making one last sand drawing, a rather prophetic one at that, displaying many of the deeds that the party has accomplished thus far in their adventure, and perhaps one that they have yet to accomplish. After that, there was a visit by Bireshadjet the Glassblower, an ancient blue dragon that the party has had more than one run-in with before. And she had come for her hatchling, which the party was recently in possession of. They turned the hatchling over, as well as a portion of treasure, and Bireshadjet kindly let them go, with word of warning. And so after that was over with, there wasn't much of a reprieve before there was a patrol of this new kind of undead called the Unleashed, that are present in Messhiba and seem to have taken over. And finding them in patrol formations, armed with weapons, and seemingly following and giving orders, the intelligence and organization that they displayed was a little disheartening. It's a little odd. And as they felled the last of these, this undead patrol, they saw through the city gates reinforcements were on their way already. And as they looked up, they noticed that the sand that was being kicked up into the air by these reinforcements was in fact being kicked up by chariots. More Unleashed driving these chariots, and pulling the chariots were undead steeds. That was where we had left off last time. So we will kind of be joining the action in media res, as it were. And yeah, let's see. Before we get to that, we see the drawing of colored sands that displayed this prophecy, still nestled well near the center, the heart of the labyrinthine Navendar tent city. A small wind picks up and blows directly across the part of the prophecy that depicts the heroes approaching the tombs of the Shara with storm clouds overhead. The sand that depicts these four heroes is smudged into obscurity as this wind blows, and nothing else is disturbed. Just as the sand settles, we fly away and fade into sand rising into the air, plumes and clouds of it. As the camera falls back down into the streets of Messhiba, now for the most part empty, save for the corpses scattered everywhere about. And charging down the sandy streets of the capital are 3 chariots in a triangular formation, one out front, 2 flanking just behind on either side. Each chariot itself bearing 2 riders, one holding the reins of these undead steeds, the other looks like wielding a bow. So, Shava, Khalid, Rith, and Noctos, the 4 of you, having just felled this patrol of the Unleashed outside the city gates, have looked up and seen this sight that is bearing down upon you. If you recall, not long before, Shava had shown you where there was a few horses that had been stuck more or less in a stable without any way to really get out themselves, but also somewhat protected from the Unleashed who seem to have ravished the rest of the city. So the 4 of you, what do you do?
Well, Shava is going to, I think she was like crouching at the end of this thing, and she looked and saw these horses, and she's going to, or she saw the chariots coming at her. She's going to look back at Khalid and Rith and Noctos, and she's going to say, "To the horses, fly!" And then she'll leap over that wall that we hid behind to attack those zombies.
Rith is going to come out of his scorpion form, so he has a better chance for maneuvering. And in the midst of this, he's thinking, horsefly. That sounds like an interesting combination. As he follows Shava over the wall in the direction of the trapped horses.
I don't know how to fly. I'm coming. Yes. Noctos will run and kind of try to jump over that wall, having a bit of trouble because it's a little high for him, and then roll over and fall on his belly.
Khalid will follow as well. The same plan that Shava had was the first one that crossed his mind. We should leave while we can. And he'll jump right into action as well, aiming for the stable.
So the four of you and Sigrid turn and run as fast as you can back to where the place that Shava had shown you, this stables that was near the wall, that had a portion of the wall that had collapsed, therefore allowing access to the stable from the outside. But the collapse itself had also formed a barrier that allowed the horses to remain protected thus far. So you kind of round the corner as these chariots are beginning to close with the open gates. You can hear the rattle of these wheels and see the dust cloud kicked up high above the height of the walls. And you round the corner through the gap, and you see there are, in fact, horses still here. I believe there are 4 of them. In addition, you see another being looking like he's maybe trying to wrangle them, although, judging by his appearance, perhaps he's trying to eat them. You don't know. It's an enormous humanoid snake figure, cobra, judging by the look and kind of build. What do they see whenever they spot you, Vought?
At the moment, they don't. I guess from the waist up, though a little bit bulkier and definitely a greenish black. I appear humanoid. My hood isn't up. I'm not trying to scare these horses, but it definitely appears very clumsy. I don't know if we agreed on a length of my body, but I do not have legs. So I'm probably almost even stumbling over myself as I'm coiling back and forth trying to wrangle these horses.
Sure. Okay. So, upon spotting this, how do the 4 of you respond?
Shava has seen some stuff already tonight or today, and so she is going to just run at one of the horses, and if he's in the way, she's going to swing her scimitar at him, and then she's going to ride away as fast as possible.
Should I make a dexterity save?
Should I make an attack?
I don't know if I'm necessarily in the way.
Okay.
I guess maybe noticing you guys, I have put less attention to the horses and maybe put my hand on my weapon as a precautionary measure rather than a threatening measure.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so yeah, she sees a stranger, and she's fleeing crazy monsters she's never seen before. I'm pretty sure she's never seen them anyway. And she's just getting the hell out. Or would I be familiar with Naga?
Familiar would probably not be a good word for it. You may have seen one or two, but I doubt that you've had any intimate dealings with them before.
Yeah, okay. I'm not chancing it. I'm assuming our plan is still to get the hell out, and I jump on that horse.
Yeah, and it seems that Shava and Khalid seem to be of especially like minds, at least for now. Like Khalid seeing this thing, just like his hand goes to this gold kopesh that he's managed to find on this journey, and just like kind of skirting around past this snake person, is gonna throw himself up onto a horse as well. Just basically not even saying anything.
Okay, my question is, are Naga a particularly common race in this region, or maybe Rith would have heard about this in the Supnos River Valley, or this is just totally off?
No, it's definitely not something that you read about in the Eastern Valley. That's not typically a place that they have a lot of dealings with. They're a fairly reclusive people usually, but Rith may not even know that. I would imagine that this is probably the first time that Rith has seen anything like this.
Well, I mean, other than the time he became a cobra.
Well, yes, although that was a little more snake-like.
Yes. Well, Rith is probably taking up the rear here because he is the shortest character with the shortest stride. So even behind Noctos, he's seeing up ahead Shava and Khalid run past this creature, and this creature doesn't even, he reaches for his weapon, but he doesn't do anything to defend himself. Shava and Khalid both jump on horses and ride off, and Rith's first thought is, I want to know more, but there's here, I need to get a horse. I need to keep up with the party. So he's gonna do that instead of stopping. He's gonna ignore his tendency to explore.
Yeah, as Rith hesitates, Noctos is going to run and scoop him up and say, that snake is much bigger than you. It can keep that horse. Let's take this one, and we'll get on that one together and leave.
Yeah. And Rith has no say in the matter.
Does Rith wish to fight, or is he just going to let Noctos manhandle or dwarf handle him?
Well, gnome handle more like it, because he's caught off guard by this. He doesn't even get a chance to defend himself as Noctos' gigantic arm comes around Rith's twig-like body and restrains both of his arms. So Rith is scooped up off his feet and tossed onto a horse without much say in the matter.
So all five of you, if you could please, roll me perception.
Seem to be very perceptive this evening.
Yeah, our eyes are peeled.
Wow. All right. 2 nat 20s. 3 nat 20s. Holy hell.
Well,
fantastic.
We're wasting them all at the beginning. Let's get this going.
All right. Yeah. So, you all of you, not a single one of you misses the item that kind of catches your eye just as you're kind of heading out of this little corral. It's a particularly nice looking bronze vase. Let's see here. It's bejeweled. Kind of an urn, if you will. It's kind of sitting off to the side, somewhat nestled in the sand near one of the piles of rubble. It looks like it may have maybe been hidden inside the wall itself, and the collapse may have, revealed it. So there is that bit of information.
Noctis is very intrigued by this. And he's going to veer off that direction. And I'm going to take Rith and use him as like a grabber tool as we kind of go by, see if he can't scoop it up.
All right. So, Rith, make a dexterity saving throw for me.
$13. Oh,
You got you.
okay. 13.
13. Okay, good. You reach down easily, the length that Noctis is able to lower you down the side of this thundering beast, and you scoop up this urn that's probably, I don't know, it's probably 2 armfuls for you. It's a decently sized urn. Like I said, it's covered with jewels, and some of them seem to be maybe missing, slightly tarnished spots where the metal underneath looks a little different. But it is certainly a well-made item. You see out on the outside of it, there are rubies, emeralds, and diamonds that kind of bedeck the outside of this this vessel. And inside, it appears to be completely empty, except for just a few grains of sand that are just kind of loose, sliding around on the inside.
Okay, and Rith is going to start doing the best he can to try and remove some of the loose stones, starting with the diamonds, so he has fuel for the Haratapi.
You pluck off, which one do you want to try first?
The diamonds.
Okay. You manage to pluck off one of the diamonds, and as you do so, it turns to sand and falls to the ground, leaving behind a similar-looking worn spot on the metal from where you're guessing the other stones were missing.
As the diamond falls to sand in Rith's fingers, he makes an audible "ah" sound and almost wants to throw the urn back on the ground where he found it, but something tells him to hold on to it because it might be important.
You drop that, Rith. I will drop you.
Rith will hold on for dear life.
All right. So when you ride up and out of this broken portion of the wall, these horses seemingly glad to be shown a way that they can escape, though reluctant at first to step on the rubble and such. With your coaxing, you manage to get them up and out of this corral and into the sands that surround the city of Messhiba. And, as luck would have it, just as you do so, you see these 3 chariots rounding the corner of the exterior of this gate, pressing after you in chase. So, we have... oh, I guess there's actually a very important thing. You just brought the same idea to me, Baron. Naga riding horses. You know what? Yeah, we're going to say so. You kind of have to distribute your weight kind of, back and forth over the back of the horse. Your horse is probably not really thrilled about the idea of an enormous snake riding.
Honestly, my snake technique is probably a superior technique. I can probably lean a lot better. This is common Naga stuff. We're all talented horse riders here.
You can maybe even say Naga, please.
Naga, please.
You got this. All right. So, the 4 horses thunder out, and you are trying to gain, some ground, getting away from these chariots. But as I said, these chariots are giving chase, and in each of the chariots, there is an archer. And if you happen to look back and take stock of the situation, these archers are, of course, undead, the unleashed type. They are wielding bows that appear to be made out of bone. And I will show you a picture like that. And at first you think it's kind of odd because, you know, you see no quiver. And then one of them reaches into his chest and pulls one of his own ribs from his body. And he holds it out in front of his face and opens his mouth and appears to whisper something. And the rib straightens out, the curve of the rib bone flattening. And as it does so, it also spirals on itself. And the point of the rib elongates just a bit, sharpening. And as he moves to place this on his bowstring, you notice that there's a little bit of his papery flesh kind of clinging to the back, almost like fletchings, as he knocks this bow and pulls back and fires at you. Let's see. Who's he going to shoot at?
I will willingly volunteer, as I was probably the last one out of there.
Fair enough. Okay. What is your AC, Vat?
My AC is 16.
Okay, and this is from some kind of armor that you're wearing, I assume?
Yes, though my image doesn't really depict it very well, I am adorned with a form of Naga chainmail. Functionality the same as chainmail, but wearable by a snake.
Okay. So this manages to hit you, though it does not manage to penetrate your armor. So the chain effectively stopped it from actually coming through and getting you at all. Okay. So I think it's safe to say, guys, that we can roll initiative. And how's the conversation going between you as this is kind of unfolding?
Rith is worried because, my hands are full of urn or vase or whatever this large spherical thing is. And I don't have ranged spells or ranged weapons, and I'm on the back of the horse. So somebody help.
I think as I'm bringing up the rear, maybe, I guess you said that these undead were fairly intelligent, but I don't necessarily think I would maybe know that. So I am not, trying to hide this conversation. I'm shouting, please, I need your help. Probably from 30 feet back. So whoever's leading the party might not even have heard me over the gallop.
I think Shava would probably be the one in the lead, but I wondered if we had even left at this point, though, because we picked up that the jar, but then the rest of us might have just been like ready to bolt off with the dwarf and the gnome once they picked up the jar. I don't know. What do you think, Khalid?
I mean, to be honest, Khalid would not have hung around. He absolutely would have started to move.
Okay, then yeah, I definitely would have moved with you.
I imagine.
I think like Khalid would like look back as like he hears like the whiz of the arrow, and just turn around. And just, the horses carry the weight of the chariots. I think we can outrun them if we move. No need to throw ourselves into the battle.
Yes, I think you are right. Could I make a perception roll to hear what Vought said to us?
I'm fine with you having heard it. I mean, you guys are your horses are kind of running on sand, so it's not exactly really loud at the moment.
Okay. Yes, we can outrun the chariots, but why are our friends still back there?
Because there's two of us on this one.
And who is the snake creature?
Please, I am Vat Samuchi of the Tombs of Shara.
A naga.
Just a poor fool that got caught in the city.
Very same.
We can see if he's worth keeping later. Right now, we need to make sure we live.
Yes, yes, to the shifting sands.
Did he say Tombs of Shara? Did anybody else hear that? Or am I the only one?
You do have the big ears.
Concerned with my life right now. We can talk about other things later.
Yeah, so we're just spurring the horses and getting out of there as fast as we can.
Sounds like it.
Cool.
Khalid, you're up first.
Khalid is just going to dig his heels into the horse and try to push it as fast as it'll go. His focus is not at all on fighting, but escape. He's not particularly excited by the idea of going toe-to-toe with chariots. So I don't know, whatever that would be mechanically, I don't know if I can take a dash action on a horse or not.
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, I'm just going to do that.
Okay.
Move a dash and just go for the big movement.
Excellent. Okay, so kind of the lay of the land out in front of you, you're kind of passing the Navendar tent city kind of on your left, and behind the Navendar tent city is the walls of Messhiba. So you're kind of riding, out with the desert on your right and all of that stuff on your left. And for the most part, as of right now, the riding is very easy. The horse is easy to control and things, but you are also kind of out in the open. There's very little to use as cover. So it's kind of just up to you whether you'd rather take a more of a difficult but covered route or an easier route that's out in the open.
Shava wouldn't shy away from difficulty. Does one of them seem faster than the other? Yeah, go with the easier one then, I think.
Okay. So that's Khalid. He has chosen to stay more out, just kind of out in the open, the easier path. The horse is a little easier to control this way. And that brings us to Noctos. You're up.
As he's galloping on his horse, he's going to reach his hand back. Rith, hand me the urn. I will tie it to the saddle. Take my crossbow. So he's going to finagle getting that jar connected somehow to the barding, or tie it to the hair of the mane if there is no barding, and then make sure that he can get the crossbow to Rith.
You're gonna hand it to me? Okay. That's fine. Rith is gonna take the crossbow then.
Okay. So yeah, Noctos kind of hands you back this loaded crossbow as he takes the urn from you.
Then as a bonus action, I want to cast Shield of Faith on him as well, since he's behind me.
On Rith? Okay. What does that look like?
It's kind of look like just a an ever-flowing waterfall that's coming from above me to in front of him as we go through the dunes there.
Okay, so you are sticking with the more open path as well? You're muted, but...
Yes, I'm just following the leader.
Okay.
Let's put the card together.
All right, and that brings us to Rith. You're up.
All right, now that Rith has a loaded crossbow, having been around animals all of his life, I imagine he would be able to steady himself easily as he turns around and faces away from the direction they're heading with this crossbow. This crossbow that's 3 times the size. I'm not even sure how I'm going to roll for the crossbow because I don't have any of those stats in front of me.
The attack will be your dexterity, and I believe, is it a light crossbow, Michael?
It's a D8. It's a light crossbow, yeah.
Okay, so it's a simple weapon, if I'm not mistaken. So I think as a druid, I think you're proficient with it. Screw it. You're proficient with it. So,
sure.
You get to add your proficiency bonus plus your dexterity modifier to hit. Okay. And then if you hit, it is a D8 plus your dexterity.
All right. Then Rith is going to take aim at the closest horse, an undead horse. Sorry, I don't want to shoot my buddies. Take aim at the closest undead horse, try to cripple at least one of the wagons or chariots. So that's a 15.
Yes, I was on the wrong screen. Sorry. Yes, that absolutely hits. Go ahead and roll your damage.
All right. Ooh, perfect 8. So that is a very well aimed crossbow bolt, preferably at the leg of the nearest undead horse. Or, well, they don't have muscles, so what would I be aiming for? Tickle their ribs, maybe?
There we go. Okay, so yeah, there's definitely not a lot to them. They're pretty much just kind of, loose, papery, somewhat leathery skin stretched over a bunch of bone. So your arrow definitely, or your bolt definitely finds purchase and hits, and you're guessing it maybe chipped a piece of the bone or something. Something kind of white flies off. But it doesn't look like it damaged it quite as much as you may have been expecting.
Darn.
He's going to take half damage from that.
Excellent. And then as a bonus action, we're just going to reach back and be like, Noctos, another bolt.
I'll just keep feeding them when I can.
Okay.
And I'll keep loading.
All right, so that's Rith. It is Voss's turn.
As I know it, we're just being pursued by these 3 chariots, and only one of them's fired at us.
Thus far, yeah, only one of them is shot.
Okay, and then Rith made a connection to the rib cage of one of these, but it seemed to have little to no effect.
Of one of the steeds, yes.
Okay. I'm going to try something a little crazy for my first attack in this campaign. I'm going to throw my sword. Just basically as Thor-esque as possible. I'm sure that's more of a dexterity rather than strength for the attack modifier.
Oh, not for thrown. You're good.
It would be strength? Or would be dexterity?
Yes. No, with a thrown weapon, you can use either strength or dexterity.
Well, shoot.
Technically speaking, it is counted as an improvised weapon if you're throwing a melee weapon, but I've never liked that rule, so we're not doing that.
Well, I mean, I'm comfortable with knocking down the damage.
Nah.
To like well, okay. Yep, that's up to you. I got a 21 if we're going with the
excellent
strength.
And
so
you were throwing at one of the charioteers or one of the steeds?
I'm throwing it at the guy who shot me. So basically, as I'm kind of sauntering on this horse, I kind of just draw my blade, which rests at my left side of my hip, and basically just chuck it backwards as hard as I can, using primarily instinct to try and hit this guy. And rolling a 21, I imagine that hits.
Yes, it does.
And I'm rolling a d8 because I threw it with one hand. So I got a total of 5 slashing damage.
Okay. He will take all of that as the sword collides into him, and he collapses into the bottom of the chariot.
And as the sword breaks through his skeletal body, before it even makes it all the way through, it is basically turning into sand. And for those of whoever would have been paying attention, notice that the hilt of my sword is back in its sheath.
Excellent. Okay. That was Voss. It is Shava's turn.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said earlier, I'm just going to go down the one, the easier looking pathway, and then I think I would notice that this snake creature is, or the Naga, I guess. I would know what a Naga is. Anyway, the Naga is following us and seems to be attacking the zombies with us, so that's good. But otherwise, I have no actions.
Very well. Okay. So you press on, riding as fast as you can, just hoping that speed can outdistance these chariots. And they continue to ride after you, not looking like you're gaining much ground, at least for the time being, but you get the distinct impression that the lack of weight of both the non-living horses and the non-living riders is probably somewhat of an advantage. The 2 archers that remain are going to fire. The first of which fires upon lead. The second of which fires upon Bot. Us. Bot? V-A-A-T or V-A-S?
T. Bot.
Bot. That's right. Cool.
Okay. I mean, open for interpretation. I'm saying it how I'd like to say it, so.
Perfect. I will try to use the same. All right, Khalid, what is your armor class?
15.
Okay, that is a hit. I believe a 17 hits you, Vought. Okay. So Khalid, this archer pulls forth one of his own ribs, turning into a missile, loading it into his bow and firing at you. And you will take 6 points of piercing damage. Oh, Vought. You're going to take 12. In addition, Vought, as you're hit with this secondary arrow, you feel the first arrow that hits you dislodge, fall from your chainmail, what have you, and you hear the sound of bone hitting bone. And you may be kind of surprised, kind of looking over your shoulder, to see that one of these charioteer archers has reassembled himself, missing the rib that he shot at you on the back of your horse directly behind you. He immediately grabs a hold of the side of your head and opens his mouth, his jaw somewhat unhinging at the sides, and begins making a horrid noise as he breathes in. And I need you, please, to make a Constitution saving throw.
$19 on the die.
Excellent.
Terrifying, by the way. That was absolutely terrifying.
Good. And what does it look like as you stave off this necrotic energy that threatened to steal your life essence from you?
Up until now, my hood has been down, so my ear hole would have probably been relatively visible, and I think that's what he was going for. So with just kind of like an instinctual like hood up, kind of like got in between him and my ear, so it maybe just kind of muffled the noise a bit.
Excellent. Yeah, there may have been just a little bit of molted skin that comes off instead. You know, that part of your hood kind of instantaneously turns white and begins to kind of scale over and sheath off as the skin on the exterior dies, but nothing below the surface.
A benefit of dealing with Naga things, we're experienced with death.
Truth. So the charioteers themselves, the ones that are still riding, press their advance, closing the distance just a little, but still being a ways back, probably about 50, 60 feet from the back of you, the rear of your order, if you will. That will bring us back to the top of the round with Khalid.
So what type of environment can we see right now? Because basically what I'd like to do, if it's possible, is, you know, they may have a decent advantage of us on flat ground, but if we can get something that's a little rougher, a horse is going to be able to traverse that better than a chariot that has to be carried in a certain way. So if there's any type of like rougher hills or maybe like some sand dunes, something like that, where we have a chance of trying to tip one of these chariots, Lead's going to try to hopefully lead at least himself, if not the chariots, to follow him into something like that.
Do you call this plan out to your comrades, or are you just going to try to take lead of the group, or are you just headed there by yourself?
If he would see something of the sort that he would actually be able to use for that, he would shout out like, "Over there in the hills!"
Yes,
absolutely.
absolutely.
Hope to tip them.
Nearby, off to the right, you see that there are some fairly steep dunes that are kind of outside the city. And I rolled randomly a d4, and it looks like it's going to take about 4 rounds to reach. So it's some ways off.
Outside of that, I'm just going to continue to move and dash.
Excellent. Okay. So you're kind of somewhat pulling ahead of some of the rest of your party members. You and Shava, it sounds like, have pulled ahead because you're doing nothing but bearing down on these horses and making them ride as fast as they can. Your concentration, you know, wholly in one place. Noctos, you're up.
I'm going to feed Rith another bolt and continue concentrating on a sacred armor, shield of faith rather, and trying to move the water in such a way that might catch their eye to divert the attention towards us, since we have the Yabala's protection.
Trying to shift the water in such a way as to try to
catch their eye to get the attack on us instead of
trying to get them to shoot Rith.
Effectively, yeah.
Fair enough. Okay. That sounds like a plan. All right.
Yabala will keep you safe.
That brings us to Rith.
Rith gets the tingling sensation that he might become a gnomish shield soon. Shh.
Bye.
Sorry, my patron's talking to me. Okay, Rith's going to load this crossbow bolt, and while he's fumbling with the lever because, you know, he's so weak, he's trying to pull it back, but he's thinking, okay, I shot the horse, didn't do much good. How about if I shoot the driver instead? And so he pulls his bolt back and locks it in place and takes aim at the charioteer instead this time. And let's fly a bolt for, again, 15.
That's what you need to hit.
Right. So this bolt's flying towards the charioteer and grazes him in the shoulder for 2 damage.
All right, he will take all of that.
And then as a bonus action, if I haven't already taken one, loading the bolt, Rith's going to take the crossbow itself and hold it up to protect his face from what might be coming in the near future.
Okay. And then Rith readies himself. Voss, or Vot, what are you up to?
So I'm thinking that since this guy is like right on this horse with me, that I'm gonna definitely try and get him off this horse. So I was thinking about grappling him, as counterproductive as that sounds.
Okay.
To
And
potentially just put him inside my control to toss him off.
Sure. Are you talking about grappling with your hands or with the rest of your body?
With my body.
Okay.
Actually, to be honest, probably my hands. I'm probably utilizing my body to its fullest capacity right now.
Okay, cool. Yes, and as Jeff has pointed out, there is also a shove action if you would like to take that instead.
Yeah, I was previously unaware, so definitely that sounds a little bit
Okay, awesome.
more up my alley. Thank you, Jeff.
Mechanically, it works exactly the same. So you'll just go ahead and roll an athletics check for me, and then he's going to roll an athletics or an acrobatics, his choice.
9 on the die for a total of 14.
Okay, he got an 18 on the die. So what does it look like as you kind of shove part of him off, but it doesn't stay gone, and the rest of him stays put?
Have you ever like pushed into something and it moved significantly easier than it was supposed to, so ultimately kind of threw you off balance? I think my hand is kind of like assuming that he's got a little bit more durability to him. Not saying that he doesn't, but I make a false move, I guess, if anything, and put force in the wrong spot and kind of just throw myself into him, if anything.
Yeah, and you push his upper arm basically out of socket, and it kind of just tumbles to the ground, it very quickly left behind. But before long, it just kind of not regrows, but it just kind of like clicks back into place, almost popping out of his, like the hole left behind, kind of reassembling almost.
I picture like I'm pretty much face to face with this screaming undead monstrosity that I have never experienced before, and the only thing that's crossing my mind, I hate the dead, is I'm just fighting with this zombie.
Excellent. Okay, that brings us to Shava.
Okay, so these chariots are gaining on us, and we're sort of in the midst of fighting with them. Shava is going to be riding, right? And she's going to touch the pendant on her chest, and she pulls her fingers away, and the sand comes off of it just a little bit, and it trails off, and she can see down to this particular zombie chariot. And the sand seems to be pointing directly at one of the at the driver of the chariot. And so this is me casting True Strike for my next turn.
Excellent. And True Strike gives the next attack advantage. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. On my next turn, I gain advantage to my first attack.
Excellent. Okay. So yeah, this sand kind of makes its way back to the driver, almost like you said, kind of swirling about it, kind of making him stand out a bit more. Okay. That brings us to the Unleashed. The one that is on the horse behind Vought still pulls a short sword from the scabbard on his hip and begins attempting his best to strike at him. And not doing very well at all, probably because his arm was still reassembling as he tried to swing and just didn't quite function right.
Was he attacking me, you said? I'm sorry.
Yes. Yes, and he missed with a 1.
Okay.
Very poor performance, even for an undead.
Not them all.
But he will attempt once again to try to breathe your life force. So once again, I'll need you to make a Constitution saving throw, if you would, please.
19 on the die.
Excellent. And once again, you stave off this effect, this rob of your life that was attempted. The
I'm
other
kind of
two,
depicting it as like I'm just shedding skin now. Like this is kind of
Yes.
the natural resistance to necrotic damage for Nagas. I'm just gonna shed it off. I think it's what shed it
Perfect.
off.
I love it. Take a point of inspiration. Okay. So the other two who shot last round, let's see. Both of them pull similar maneuvers to their counterpart, disappearing into a collapse of bone in the chariot where they stood and reappearing where they shot. One of them shot and hit. Oh, no, wait. One of them can't because one of those was at Vought. So he will stay behind. The other one, however, hit Khalid. Khalid, you now have a partner behind you as well, who likewise initiates his welcoming with an inhale, and I'll need you to make a Constitution save, if you would, please.
That is an 18 on the die, which will get me to a mod 20.
Excellent. Likewise, you're able to steel your resolve against this effect and shake it off. And the last archer who was not able to make this jump, if you will, instead is just going to fire another one of his ribs, once again taking it from his own body, allowing it to become this arrow, knocking and shooting, fulfilling Noctos's wish and shooting at Rith. Rith, what is your armor class? Don't forget your Shield of Faith. +2.
18.
18. Okay. However, a 22 is still going to hit. So, let us see. We will take 6 points of piercing damage as one of these bone arrows finds purchase. The chariots press onward, now about 40 feet behind Vought, who is at the rear of this collection of horses, this string of riders of yours that are kind of starting to spread apart a bit. We head back to the top of the round with Khalid. As you press closer towards these dunes that you had turned yourself and the rest of your party towards, what do you do?
As this undead is now quite literally on my back, Khalid's going to kind of inch forward a little bit on the horse to put a little bit of distance between him and this thing. And then with an elbow, he's going to whirl around and try to just like smash it across its hip and knock it off the horse. So I'm just going to do a shove.
Go ahead and roll that up.
Alrighty, and that is only a 13 for me.
Well, all I got this time around was a 5. So, using your bow, you said?
Elbow.
Elbow. Yeah, you kind of swing your elbow backwards, and you actually catch this guy on his armor, the Shanabet that he kind of wears, that depicts these two grotesque buzzard heads kind of arcing up above his back. You kind of catch him right in the side of the pauldron with your elbow, and that, you notice, just like the rest of the Shanabets that you've seen on the undead, is actually bolted into place. So there's really not a whole lot of getting away from that. And it causes him to slide sideways, toppling off of your horse and into the sand as he just kind of rolls and comes apart into 100, pieces.
That Khalid will let out a sigh of relief, just and keep his horse directed straight towards these dunes. That'll be it.
Excellent. That brings us to Noctos.
Sorry, I was Control D was trying to type in chat.
Yeah.
So Noctos is going to kind of turn and split off a piece of the water that's protecting Rith, and have it flow into the ground. And he's going to cast Thaumaturgy, causing harmless tremors throughout the ground to try to loosen the sand behind us. I'm going to try to make that happen beyond Vought, because I can do it within 30 feet, just to try to slow them down and maybe get a wheel stuck in the loose sand or something to that effect.
Excellent. Okay. Cool. So yeah, this round, what they'll have to do is basically make vehicle checks, land vehicle checks against your spell DC,
Okay.
Which is what?
That is 14.
Excellent. Okay. Perfect. So yeah, this sand kind of almost immediately behind your horse, Vought, almost in a perfect line, just immediately starts kind of shaking and shimmering. Some of it kind of even opening gaps, and the sand on either side starts to kind of pour into these holes that are just appearing everywhere. Rith, you're up.
Okay, so is this bone arrow lodged in Rith's side or something?
Yeah, it's probably somewhere in your front since you're facing him. So it's probably either in your shoulder or your chest.
Rith has been keeping an eye on the battlefield, and having seen what comes next after these bolts make their purchase, he's going to take a bonus action and remove the bolt from him and toss it off the horse, so he doesn't have to worry about being joined by a third member, which our horse cannot support at the time. And since Noctos did not hand him a bolt, not like Rith's complaining anyways, he's actually going to pull out a torch from his pack as his action.
Okay. Pulling the arrow free, you will take 3 points of damage. This is necrotic damage, as you feel almost like a resistance, almost like you're untethering something. And it's a little painful, but you manage to wrench it free and throw it into the sand, and almost immediately it kind of deteriorates into nothingness. And you do manage to rifle through your pack, kind of slinging the crossbow kind of somewhat over your shoulder out of the way. You rifle through your pack and kind of, probably somewhat clumsily, but you manage to get this torch out and in your hand. Is the intention to light it?
Yes, but I need a spell for that.
Okay.
Next turn, but I do have a miniature torch because I'm a miniature person. Don't need big torches.
That's
Hoping
very
it'll
true.
fit in the crossbow.
And if you're using your spell simply to light your torch, I'm okay with you going ahead and doing this on the same turn.
Then I'm going to use Druidcraft to go ahead and light the torch and prepare to load it.
Excellent. So as you're using your magic to light this torch, particularly this Druidcraft spell, what does it look like?
Well, the desert air is already dry, so it won't take too long as Rith mutters something under his breath, and this little torch just springs to life. It's just poof. He's got this flaming ball in his hand that he starts stuffing into the crossbow, being very careful not to burn his fingers off.
All right. I like where this is headed. All right. That was Rith. Vought, you're up.
And I am still struggling with the bogey on the back of my horse with me.
Yes.
So I am going to make another attempt to shove, which I got a 19 modified this time.
Excellent. He rolled well, but only a 17 this time. So you did manage to succeed in pushing him. Did you just push him straight off the back of your horse to the side?
I actually kind of picture like I'm got his arms in my hands, and like maybe my tail kind of sneaks up and wraps around his neck and kind of just tosses him behind me.
Perfect. I love it. Yeah, the snake tail kind of comes up behind it. I imagine we're kind of seeing it from Thought's point of view.
Yeah.
And this horrific image of this thing, and all of a sudden this snake tail kind of just comes from behind him, wraps around the main part of his body and head, and just throws him ragdoll style.
And I almost picture him kind of like brush some of the dust that the scream kind of kicked out of his throat. Like, ugh, gross. Now I do have a question. What is kind of the situation with the chariots right now? Because I know one guy was with me. Was that like a duplicate, or was that guy on the chariot transported to me?
Each of the chariots has 2 of these individuals on them. One seems to be relegated as a driver, though they do seem to have the same equipment as these others.
Okay.
And so as of right now, the 3 chariots, 2 of the chariots only have drivers, and one of the chariots still has driver and archer.
Okay.
And the closest chariot to you, and you are the furthest back of the party, is about 40 feet currently.
Okay, that was just my question. I didn't know if like we were producing more enemies by prolonging this fight at all. So
no,
just
not
curious.
currently.
At that point, I'm turning around, and hopefully next turn I'll be able to dash with everyone else.
Excellent. Okay. Brings us back to Shava.
Okay, so the chariots that you said are 40 feet behind us, right?
Yes.
Okay, and I think Noctos may have cast a spell, or maybe it was Khalid, that disrupted the ground right behind the person at the back of our order, right?
It certainly did. You could even say that the sands began to shift.
Oh. Well, Shava notices this, and she looks down at the haunch of her horse, and she notices there's, I guess, of her horse, and she notices that there's a pack of javelins strapped there, and the sand is pointing toward one of the javelins, and so she grabs it, and she looks behind her to double check that this this sand is still pointing her toward the lead on this chariot. And she falls back in the order to where she's actually about 10 feet behind the guy in the back. And if I can move over to the left to avoid the sand shifting, that'd be great. And then I want to make an attack with advantage against the driver of the chariot that hopefully will like mess them up the most if it crashes.
Okay. So yeah, when you place your true strike upon the head chariot, the lead of the formation, if you will. Yeah, absolutely. So you're able to kind of fall back in the order, get a little closer, and ready a throw with one of these javelins.
Excellent. Okay, so let's do this here. It is a 15 on the first die and a 9 on the second. So I got a 20 total to hit this guy. And
that absolutely will make contact.
Great. And then I'm also going to roll 3d6 because I get my sneak attack bonus from advantage. So that's 6, 6 again, and 1. So 13 total.
You also get to apply your strength or your dexterity with a thrown weapon if you wish.
Oh, really? Well then, it's 16.
Okay.
Thanks for letting me know.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what does it look like as you take the driver out with this shot?
Oh man, do I wreck the chariot too?
Hang on, let me see. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, awesome. So, I let go of the reins for a moment and I lean back and I'm practically lying on the back of my horse and I look over my shoulder and then I just turn my body and throw this javelin at this guy. And I say, go with the shifting sands. And then it flies through the air and it hits the dude, like, I think right in the shoulder. But like it weighs him down and he leans forward. And then the javelin gets caught in the wheel of the chariot and snaps off, and he just like bursts into a million bones out in front of the chariot, and then it turns and like hits its side and starts rolling.
Absolutely. Yeah, the chariot kind of, the tongue on the front of the chariot kind of dips, catching some of the shifting sand that Noctos has summoned forward. The chariot then catapulting up and over, colliding into the backs of the two steeds that were pulling it, and they likewise in turn shatter into just 1,000 pieces of bone and leathery hide. And there's just this eruption of sand just shoots up in the air.
Yeah.
You can have a point of inspiration.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, the two remaining chariots, one of which still has an archer, the other of which I believe we still have two rider. Nope, one rider was bucked. No, both of them were bucked off. But I do not believe either one of them has been killed outright. Okay, so the two that were dismounted from the shared horse nest, their place on the horse with the party members, both kind of reassemble from the ground, and they're scattered pieces around. They kind of reassemble back into standing upright. Once again, reach down and wrench free another rib, loading it up for a shot. These are going to be at disadvantage as they've kind of been left behind, but they will go ahead and try to make an attack nonetheless. Let's see, to whom? One of them to Khalid, the other to Shava. So Khalid, this first arrow is headed in your direction. I think that's going to be a hit with a total of 20. Shava, what is your AC?
AC is 15.
And they hit you as well with a 16.
Ah.
Okay, so Khalid, you will take 8 points of piercing damage. Shava, you will take 12 points of piercing damage.
So something that I totally forgot I had last time, but this time I'd hopefully like to use it, is my deflect missiles as a monk.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Alrighty, and that is a 5 on the die, which if you add in the dexterity modifier is going to be 8 damage, so that'll actually cancel that out.
Nice. I think you also get your level too, don't you? Something pretty crazy like that.
Yeah, which is another 3. So yeah, that's 11 damage reduced.
Absolutely. So do you simply deflect it, or do you wish to spend a key point and try to return?
I unfortunately from the last session going right into this one without any rests, I'm fresh out a key. So I imagine this arrow comes at him, and like he tries to like grab onto it to send it back, but the timing's just not quite right. But he is able to like basically smash it aside, and as he tries to grab onto it, it just kind of flies offwards into the sand.
Absolutely. And you can see, like, just about the time that you make contact with it with your hand to deflect it away from you, it almost instantaneously begins to deteriorate and fall apart. That leaves the archer that is still in the chariot, and he is going to be shooting at one of the two of you in the back. Okay, this is coming once more at you, Vot. Okay, that's a 17 on the die, so that's going to hit.
I'm actually going to use shield as a reaction to that to boost my AC by 5 at the cost of a spell.
Excellent. Okay, so what does that bring the total to?
21.
He still beat it. So yeah. So what does it look like as this shield goes up, but this missile still manages to bypass it?
So I'm kind of still playing around with this whole shed skin kind of lower piece here, and I want to say that like as I went to cast shield, 5 points. I said 21, didn't I?
Yes, he beat it with a 23.
Gotcha. Okay. Sorry, I was looking at the chat. So basically, I picture like I'm molting my entirety at this moment to kind of project it in front of me to kind of block this missile, and it kind of just rips through it like a bottle rocket through a beehive, just kind of decimating it as it hits and pegging me right in the breast or shoulder.
Excellent. Okay. So
Was there damage that you gave to me for that one?
5 points.
It's okay.
Yeah, 5 points of piercing. As
that was the 5 points.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay.
So as it kind of shatters through this molted skin barrier that you kind of throw up to try to block this incoming bone projectile, it pierces, like you said, straight through and manages to find its target. The chariots trying to get through the dangerous upturned sands that Noctos had just summoned up. They're going to attempt to see if they can do that. One of them gets caught up in it and veers violently off course as it's kind of caught in this rut and the wheels are forcibly turned away. And it's definitely going to take some time to recover and try to get its bearings again. The other one, though it is definitely shaken about, the driver manages to keep it on course for the most part, and it gets through the dangerous terrain and then is right back into the thick of this. All right. That brings us back to the top of the initiative order with Khalid. The dunes just out of reach.
With the immediate threat off of his back, Khalid's going to turn his full attention back towards escape. I'm just going to make a mad dash.
All right. You press on hard towards these dunes. That brings us to Noctos.
Noctos is going to pull some of the additional water that's floating around Rith and cast it out to Sarva. I'm sorry.
Ava?
Yeah, Sarva as a bonus action healing word, guiding it with Yabala's blessing. So I'm going to roll D4 here. So you're going to receive 8 points of healing. Yeah. Max healing from that.
So what does it look like as the water of your goddess kind of helps to knit the wounds of this sand elf?
Well, first of all, I imagine the arrow hit her in the shoulder after she got back up, if that helps you.
So this waterfall kind of crashes down on the other side of Rith, and then it kind of takes the visage of Yabala, and she'll take her hand to her mouth and kind of blow a kiss, and then a thin wafting river of water will go to the shoulder and kind of wash over it as the blood kind of dries up into the wound and it seals itself.
Excellent.
Awesome.
So I believe that is a bonus action, Noctis. So is there anything that you wish to do with your actual action?
And then with my action, I'm going to dig out another crossbow bolt and just have it ready for Rith, and if he wants it.
Excellent. Okay. It is Rith next.
While Noctis is pulling out that crossbow bolt, Rith's still following with his makeshift fire bolt. I feel like that could be a brand name. Anyways, so Rith gets this torch, nonetheless, loaded into the crossbow, and the one chariot that is still on course, that is, I suppose, keeping pace with us, is what he's going to aim for. Hopefully there's plenty of targets, just had to be able to hit the chariot. Doesn't really need to, hit any particular person or any particular target. So he's going to launch that flaming torch for 22 to hit.
Okay, so launching this torch from this crossbow, I'm going to say it probably imposes disadvantage, as this is not exactly the way these things are intended to be used. So go ahead and roll a second one, and we'll take the lower of the two.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Can I use a point of inspiration to negate the disadvantage?
Yes, I'm cool with that.
Oh, good, because, there's just stacking up here. I haven't used one in like 6 sessions. Okay,
Good.
so
Use them up.
with that 22...
Yes, it absolutely hits.
All right. I'm not sure if I rolled damage for that one, since I was aiming just in the direction of the chariot.
Yeah, go ahead and roll me. Let's call it a D6.
Okay. Just trying to light this thing up. That's a 3.
Okay, so yeah, one of them will take 3 points of fire damage as this torch comes launching out of this crossbow, kind of lobbed into this kind of arcing shot, and manages to kind of hit this thing right in the ribs and wedge itself between two of the cage's bones, and begins to kind of roast away on the inside of this creature. Okay. Vought, you're up.
And then I take the crossbow bolt from Noctis.
Yeah, absolutely. You can go ahead and load it if you wish.
Okay, so I got pegged by an arrow, correct?
Yes, sir. I believe that is correct. Yeah.
Has this arrow coalesced into one of these enemies?
Has not yet. I mean,
Okay.
No, it would never do that.
Well, I think seeing what has happened so far, I would have, immediately put my hand to the wound to try and remove it and get it away from me. Probably drawing my sword as well, maybe pushing the horse on a little faster. I don't know if pulling in the arrow is considered an action. I'm comfortable with that.
No. It will, however, cause you a point of necrotic damage as you remove it.
Okay, yeah, that's understandable. I'd rather deal with necrotic damage than another person on my freaking horse. So I'm going to pull that out, kind of like snap at my hand, throw it on the ground, and draw my weapon, and probably turn around and get a bearing on where everyone is in comparison to me to kind of catch up and follow their lead towards the dunes. And that'll probably do it for me.
Excellent. Okay. And that will bring us to Shava.
Sorry, I heard my name and it didn't register. So I'm going to take one more. Basically, like, this arrow is all of a sudden gone, and there's the wound is not quite over, but it's mostly gone. And at another one of the chariots with my javelin, and then I want to use the dash action as a bonus action to. I can. Does dash extend to my horse?
It does, yes.
Okay, cool. All right, so this roll does not have advantage, but I got 16 to hit the wagon driver of another chariot.
Yes, it will. It will make contact. Absolutely.
Okay, so I got 7 damage total.
Okay. And this one was injured, I think. Yeah. So what does that bring his total to, Mike? I can't hear you, brother. Nope.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, there we go.
Okay. I have him designated as driver number 2, and he's at 10 points.
Perfect. Okay. So he is still up for the time being, at least.
Cool.
Okay. So, one of the things I have been failing to do is narrate what Sigrid is up to during all of this. Sigrid has been riding along with you on a horse of her own. And as the battle kind of draws to a close, as you seem to be putting distance between you and most of these charioteers, this one persistent chariot still pressing the advance towards you, she stands up in her saddle, turns around, brandishing her flail and shield, and leaps into the air. And when she comes down on both archer and driver with her arms outspread and lands roughly in the back of this chariot, knocking the archer out of the back, and immediately begins engaging the driver in hand-to-hand combat, causing enough of a distraction so that the rest of you are able to escape as they steadily fall behind in the cloud of dust that you're kicking up behind you. Soon, the trouble, as well as a dear friend, are left behind. As you ride on towards these dunes in the near distance, out into the Karundu Desert and whatever waits beyond, and have made your escape from the city of Messhiba. And this is where we're going to go ahead and take our break. So, refill your glasses, empty your bladders, kiss your spouses, smoke them if you got them, all that good business. We're going to take about 10 minutes. We'll be right back, and we'll get to the second half of Session 11 of On the Rise.
I guess for anybody who's watching, this is Baron over at RWD. We are currently playtesting a D&D 5e modification called, at this point, I believe, Fur and Fury. Kind of like a Redwall, woodland critter based setting. So if you're interested in something like that, come check us out.
All right. I am returned. Hello, everybody out there. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hope everybody's having a blast. I know that I am. So I am excited about getting back into it. A little more Egyptian D&D fun.
No, it's super dope. Super dope. Having a blast.
Yeah, it's been really cool so far.
I'm glad you guys are having fun. Good.
You guys can hear me, right? I switched locations, and I'm worried that my mic isn't going to work anymore.
I can hear you just fine.
Just
Great.
good
If
over
not
here.
better.
Good, good.
Ah, there we go. You know, I thought that flaming torch was going to do more than just fizzle out and die in the cold hard ribs of some undead creature. I was expecting chariots of fire or something. But then I suppose Seeger could have jumped to her to her death in a big blaze of glory.
Perhaps she did.
We will never know.
Okay. Not sure if Jeff is back yet or not. He might be. Maybe eating dinner or something. But we'll give him just another minute or two before we get started again.
So I'm chatting with my buddy here because we got a home game on Thursday. And the Expedition engine is a pretty big hit with them. Get to focus less on rules and mechanics, and we played the Pirates one, and oh my god, it was too much. I wasn't even doing anything. I was just sitting there laughing as they were making up their own story.
It's awesome, and I'm glad to hear that it was such a roaring success. That makes me very happy.
Like, I was sitting there like, man, what's some good feedback I can give Jared to kind of help? I got nothing, man. I got nothing. That
is feedback. It's not necessarily constructive criticism, but hey, I mean, if people are happy with it, then I'm happy. Yeah, I've got another one of those coming up at the end of the month, the 30th of October. I'll be running a dead end version of the Expedition engine, which is a system that I put together, kind of an amalgamation of a couple different systems that I like. And Dead End is a zombie apocalypse game. Hopefully that'll be a lot of fun. It is going to be set at a game 3 of the World Series. So that should be fun. And then on the 1st of November, I'm running another version of the Expedition engine. This one is going to be Ghostbusters theme. It was going to be the game that I was going to run for Brigade Con, but sadly, Brigade Con is not going to happen this year. So instead, we're going to play on a different night and just make it happen. So be sure to check those out if those kinds of things interest you. So I guess we'll go ahead and get started back up here again, and Jeff can join us whenever he returns. Okay. So the five of you have put some distance, considerable distance between you and these chariots that were chasing you from the city of Messhiba. And you find yourself once again in the expansive sands of the Karundu Desert. This time, not sure what has befallen Sigrid, the barbarian from, not barbarian, sorry, the paladin from the barbaric peoples across the world. But this time also with two new additions to your party for this leg of your journey, this return to the desert, as you will. So as you begin to kind of head out into the desert and realize that the chase is no longer pressing, how are the five of you going to react? What is it that's happening whenever we check back in with our brave heroes?
I don't mind starting. I feel like as we kind of, gained a moderate speed where everyone kind of had caught up with each other, I probably would have paid attention to Rith and Noctos. More so than Shava and Khalid. I think it was Khalid. Simply for the fact that they had attempted to help me, to which I would have probably came up to the side of them. It was very gracious of you to offer a hand to me in a time of need. When that time calls on me, you have my aid. And this is directed to the both of you, really.
Yabala can always use a strong individual such as yourself. We do have quite the task ahead of us.
And you shouted something about the tombs of the Shara, which is something that caught my attention, as that is where we are heading. I figured you might be some help.
It seems that the gods have smiled on us this day, for that is my home. I have had many a disturbing night terror of problems there that I could not clearly discern. You see, I have run away from there. That is our ancestral home, but it is not the place for me, and unfortunately, it seems my purpose is to go back there.
You say the gods smile on us. Unfortunately for you, the god we are facing does not smile upon us.
Well, fortunately for you, the god that I try to represent every day is the god of valor, and he smiles on those who fight. And if what you say is true, we've got that ahead of us.
You must have been talking with Yabala, for she has been guiding us throughout this entire journey. And if that is your home, and that is where we are headed, then obviously she has put you on our path to guide us there. So if you can get us there quickly, that would be ideal.
I do not pay homage to Yabala of mine. And mechanically speaking, I don't know if I know the particular fastest route there. I'm sure I have like a kind of general direction, and I can probably get us there.
Yeah, I mean, most people here have some semblance of navigation that they use because the desert is so prevalent out here, and most travel has to cross it at some point or another. So while finding your way is not typically that difficult, the trouble really kind of comes in the manner of the fact that you are crossing a desert, and it can take days, sometimes a week or more, and it's difficult to carry that many supplies to make the journey survivable.
As someone who's probably kind of just gradually radiated away from Shara, would I know of kind of like waypoints in between here and there?
Yeah, it's possible that you might know of a couple spots here and there. One of the things that makes the Karundu Desert somewhat unique and a little deadly is that there's actually not very many oases that are a part of it. You know that the river valley to the east is a fertile land and is currently going through their summer rainy period at the moment. So the river would be very over its banks and flooded at the moment. But it is about a 6-day journey from Messhiba to the river valley. So that's difficult to reach. The mountains that kind of feed the river valley in the east curve along the northern border of the kingdom of Baklabesh, pretty much all the way to the western shore. And the tombs of Shara are nestled in the southern side of that mountain range, kind of between Messhiba and Baklabesh. Baklabesh being the old capital of the humans in this area. And the tombs of Shara are kind of in between Messhiba and Baklabesh, and then to the north.
Okay. So just to kind of finish up what I'm thinking, rather than make the decision myself, I would like to just give aid into whoever, like wisdom, counsel of that nature, just to kind of benefit their proposition, I guess. I don't want to make that kind of call right now. That's too much.
Sure.
But after Vat offers his guidance and to take us in that direction, Rith points. He's gonna hand Noctis back his crossbow first, but then he's gonna take his hand and point at the wound in his shoulder. He's like, I've been going off of no sleep and I haven't had rest in at least a couple of days. So if you can find us a spot before we reach our destination to rest, that would be great.
Up in the front, Shava is, I imagine, just still a little bit ahead with Khalid, or something, and she's talking to him. Yeah.
Sorry, what was that? You cut out for me.
Oh, sorry. I was saying I am riding up ahead with, or up ahead from the rest of the group. Can you hear me all right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but I'm riding up ahead from the rest of the group alongside you, and I look over and, do you know this Naga? I have never seen him before, not even in the sands.
No, I've seen none like him before either.
Do you
To
know
be
where we
fair,
are going?
We were going to a place known as the Tombs of Shara.
Shara. What is
Yes.
at these tombs?
Well, we think it's the priestess. One from Messhiba. The one in charge of turning the corpses of the dead into those monsters that are undead.
So if the shifting sands come for this priestess, perhaps the army will stop attacking the city?
We think this priestess is seeking some sort of ritual. I'm not quite certain on the specifics, but here she's in league with the god of the undead, who seeks to rain down his wrath, take control of the people. We're trying to stop her and him.
So she looks at you really solemnly, and then she looks over at the horizon ahead where we're riding to, and she says, "The sands may shift for us also."
Regardless, I'm not certain that I trust this newcomer, nor do I trust you entirely yet. But we will see where the journey takes us, as you say it, how the sands will shift.
Yes, I think so.
So the 5 riders press on deeper into the desert as the sun moves across the sky and begins to reach the horizon in the east as the sun in Rostfin moves from west to east across the sky. To say it is hot would be an understatement, but most of you are accustomed, at least somewhat. You have made preparations against the harshness of the sun and the heat and the sand. So you move now to the west, as if following the birthplace of the sun, and turn northward towards the mountains, which you cannot yet see. And as the light begins to fade from the sky, as it begins to turn a myriad of purples and pinks and oranges, where would you guys like to try to make camp? Mike, why don't you tell me what kind of a place it is that you guys find?
Noctos as a Mahan has the ability to kind of know the general direction of either water or gold. So I'm going to keep my senses out for either one of those. In this scenario, he ends up coming across gold. We find a ancient burial ground and are able to affix ourselves into the opening of that tomb that is filled with sand, but it at least provides some shelter for our heads. But so it's just kind of sticking out of the dune as the sands have shifted, covering it.
Yeah, and Noctos, one of the reasons why you were able to find this place was because this is actually a place where your tribe once called home several generations ago. You know that for the most part, there's not very much gold left buried beneath the sand here.
Okay.
People let this systematically collapse in on itself.
And I'm going to say it used to be an oasis, but we left because the well dried up.
But yes, there is enough room for your collection of individuals, your heroes, and their mounts. Just about the time that you find this place that you've been looking for, and the sky is beginning to change colors. Let's see. Shava, you see from the south an ominous sight. A wall of sand approaching, extending up high into the sky, and moving very quickly towards you.
And this is like a big storm cloud.
Yes, this is
Okay.
a massive sandstorm.
Okay, from the south. Let's see. So as we rode into the oasis, this is actually a place that my tribe has been to before, but it's been a while because it dried up. And so she rides up and she dismounts next to Noctos, and she says, "I do not know who you are. I am Shava of the Shifting Sands."
I'm Noctus.
Noctos, you have done well to find this place, but look, there is danger. And then she's going to point out this storm.
It is easy to come by. This actually used to be the home of my tribe. And yes, we should find shelter. I believe this way we can secure ourselves.
Good, good.
So there are these large kind of stone doors that are just bare sandstone now, as all of the gold inlay and plating of fine jewels has long since been removed. So these kind of marred sandstone doors are somewhat barring your entrance, but with the might of several of you, you're able to kind of move one of them open enough that you can all get inside as you kind of push the sand out of the way and find, again, enough of a recess that the five of you and your four mounts are able to move inside. You kind of pull this heavy stone door either shut all the way or at least mostly shut so that you can weather this coming sandstorm. And as you ride out the next several hours in this dangerous, very fatal storm that rages on outside, what is one thing that the group collective kind of learns about each of your characters as you are looking for ways to pass the time before you fall asleep?
Are we kind of just saying something about ourselves, or are we asking someone?
Either, honestly.
I guess since I'm new, I'll say something about myself. My name is Vat, which is also the name of my sword. Basically, where I'm from, you are your role, and that's it. So me being my sword is named Vat. My predecessor's name was Vat. My name is Vat. We are essentially the same thing.
That's a lot of Vought.
Put some Vought into that one.
Shava is going to look at him and say, "Is your sword a magical creation?"
No more so than you or I. When you look at your hand, is it any more magical than the rest of your body?
Your words are wise. I have, and since I too am new here, I will tell you of myself and of my gifts. Some of you came with me to meet my master, the sand drawer. He taught me how to read images in the sands and how to make images and interpret them. These images are visions of the future. Is touching this pendant on her chest, and she pulls it off, and it becomes sand in her hand, but it's all these multicolored grains. And now she's sprinkling it around on the sand in front of her to make it's, I think like an insight check is probably the most appropriate thing to just see if I can figure something new out about Vought and share it with the group.
Sure, go for it.
Cool. So my insight is a 20 total. It's a 16 on the die.
Okay, so Baron, what is it that surprisingly Shava reveals about Vought?
Maybe with the way that I have described my purpose to myself, Shava reveals that I consider myself no better than a tool or a weapon, and
Okay.
I maybe have a not necessarily a conflict of self. What's the term? Self. It's not a self-confidence. Self-worth. Because I recognize the value of a weapon, and because ultimately I want to be the best swordsman, and that's why I left my village, tombs,
Nice.
whatever.
So this image. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, so basically that's just the play on it. Is I'm trying to ascertain more wealth of purpose, if you will, in a kind of an empty fashion, I guess.
Cool. Yeah, so she's drawing this image on the floor, and she says, the sands will show us images of the future. And these look like you're flat on hieroglyphs, like on anywhere in ancient Egypt, except they're way more stylized and kind of swirly and kind of
Wind blown.
calligraphy. Yeah, yeah. And they show these images of some authority figure always pointing for this sword to go into battle. And throughout the images, the authority figure is always pointing, and the sword eventually stops being a sword and it starts being just an outline of a sword. And it goes through several battles that way, and it keeps getting like treasure amassed up around itself. And then at the very end of the vision is a snake who's holding his hand out as if to grab the sword. And she says, "It reveals secrets to us. I am sorry for revealing your secrets, Vas, without your permission." And then she finishes distributing the sand.
Vought actually doesn't take any offense to it, I guess. In my mind, he's kind of a less human-esque race while still remaining some like honorable qualities. So I don't guess necessarily I have secrets, more like answers to questions unasked.
Cool.
Right on. Yeah, that was sick.
So as this sandstorm kicks up, it actually starts moving some of the sand that's built up on the walls and whatnot. And when one large gust comes through our little cove, it actually cleans off the wall in a spot, showing some paintings and depictions of my tribe, which Noctos will then point out and divulge that it was on this site that another Mahan clan had attacked us, the Scorpion clan, and had stolen and pillaged our village. And it was at that time that Yabala had created a sect of war domain clerics to help combat against these Scorpion clan, which is where my father got his abilities that he then passed on and trained me in. And then where he has become what he is today.
I think Shava is going to take her sand, and she's gathered it all back up into her palm, and she's going to start making another image. But this time, she's trying to recreate the image that's on the wall. She's not actually making any sort of prediction. She's just admiring the art and trying to do it in her own way.
You would have been a fine wall dweller of our clan, even though you are an elf.
Thank you, dwarf.
Things like that don't live in the deserts here. We all celebrate Yabala in our own way. As the goddess of water, she brings life to us all.
As if saying, like, a sandstorm's outside, she's going to say, "Ah, yes, I follow the shifting sands, sand and water."
Don't always mix the best, but when they do, you can create beautiful things.
Yes, sand castles. I did it as a girl.
And I, as a hatchling.
While Rith is, he's not from this land, so he's just listening to all the people, converse amongst themselves about things they've done here in the desert and taking it all in, putting down some notes in his notebook, taking notes on the characters and his new comrades, and thinking on it, while with one hand fidgeting, not related to the fidget spinner, fidgeting with a stone disc that he's had with him for quite some time, that he has no purpose for it at the moment, but he's just playing with it with his hand while jotting down in his notebook and looking up periodically as, Noctis points to the hieroglyphs on the wall and Shava draws in the sand. And he doesn't say much, just watches and listens and waits.
While we have the time, Vought, what can you tell us of your homeland? Are there any secret ways in, or traps that we should be worried about? Or treasure buried deep in the sands?
That is a good question. Maybe. I'm really not sure in terms of like actual passageways. I am aware of ways we could get in should the circumstances arise.
Feel free to write a couple of checks.
We are, yeah. We are a reclusive tribe, but when trust is earned, it is freely given. It's the earning part.
All right. And during all of this, what is Khalid doing?
Khalid's just like listening, just carefully, just kind of looking at the different murals on the wall and listening to the stories of the sand and the craftsmanship and the dwarves and the elves. And then, like, as people kind of go around just sharing piece by piece of information about themselves or other things, I imagine, like, as it kind of gets passed around the circle, like Khalid just hasn't said anything and everyone's eyes kind of go to him, like expecting him to say something. And he'll just kind of like look back up and say, "Fine. What do you want to know?"
Just a question for you, Jeff. What is your character armed with?
So he doesn't wear armor. He only has just these kind of cloth cloak and shirt that covers him. He has a large gold khopesh. It looks like it's made of solid gold, though it clearly has a sharpness that normal gold wouldn't retain. And an abnormal amount of daggers. Most of them are hidden, but you can see like two like straps like under his cloak on his back that hide two daggers, like one strapped to his boot. And you can imagine there's probably a couple more after that.
Basically, if I shook you upside down, you'd pour out daggers.
Pretty close, yeah.
I guess in my mind, I picture your character as the guy who fidgets with his knife. Would that be the case?
For the most part, he's pretty still. But every once in a while, yeah, that would be the case.
Well, I guess rather than fidgeting, maybe I have caught you maybe polishing, sharpening, some sort of maintenance to your weapons. I myself, being a warrior, would maybe try and strike up a conversation about that. Maybe that's the question I would ask you, I guess, is where have you learned your technique of war?
I am no warrior, at least not in the sense that you would claim. When you grow up in a city like Messhiba, you have to learn how to defend yourself. And if you get good at it, you learn how to defend other people. And when you get good at that, sometimes they teach you how to kill. You can make good money doing that in Messhiba if you're good at it.
These are concepts I understand. If you're good at something, you do it. Those who cannot do, teach.
What of this Ink of Messhiba, your associate, as it was called? He killed several of ours. Do you have any idea where he's going off to?
Yeah, it turns out that members of the group I was a part of, if you want to use that word, they don't appreciate desertion. And our departure from that group was less than amiable by nature. As for where he's gone, I have no idea. It could be anywhere.
Are you possibly suggesting that you may be being hunted?
You'd have to be particularly petty to make a journey out of it. So, certainly not out of the question. It's not like there's much better things to do with the city that made us all so profitable now. Less than in a state of good business. We'll have to find something to buy his time if he has nothing else. He could track me down. It's much more likely that he'll take the ship that he took and find somewhere else to take it.
You say he is petty to hunt you down specifically, but since we seem to keep coming in contact with him here, there, on occasion, always seems to be relating back to you. What did you do to him? What is your personal connection?
He's an opportunist, in the same way that I'm an opportunist. The city was on fire, undead, swarming it. There's a ship outside with no one to man it. Seems like an obvious choice. Probably hardly knew it was mine.
I suppose that makes sense.
While the hours while away in the raging sandstorm outside of this small place of respite, dies down eventually, you are able to peek outside finally and see that during the course of the storm that the deepness of night has set in. The cold that comes with it here in the desert is very quickly reclaiming the land before the return of the sun. So you spend the rest of the evening catching up on some rest. And in the morning, you awaken to head back out onto the trail. And you travel for another day or so, fairly nondescript sand stretching in every direction, making sure to keep your bearings enough that you know you're heading to the west and to the north, somewhere vaguely in the direction of the mountains that stretch across the northern border of the Blackland Kingdom. Eventually, however, your horses grow weak. They had not eaten incredibly well while they were trapped in Messhiba. And now that you have been out in the desert, using them fairly extensively, they have began to slow, and you get the feeling that they probably will perish before much longer. So do you continue to press on with the horses, or do you look for some kind of place to stop?
I would like to cast Spare the Dying on each of them.
Okay. And what does that look like as you facilitate each of those?
Whenever we're taking a break, or whenever I notice that they're slowing, I'll get off, and I'll dig out one of the 6 water skins that I carry, and I'll give each of them a parcel to drink, and I'll deplete that entire skin over the 4 horses. And as that's going down their gullet, the casting of the spell will just kind of rejuvenate them slightly. As I whisper a short prayer in their ears from Yabala.
And each of you, I would imagine, have probably depleted your water skin at this point. If you only carry one, you very likely would be out at this point.
It's still creating some water here.
Okay, yes, and you can do so, though it is very difficult to do. It requires some time to manifest enough water.
Oh, for the challenge.
But yes, sometimes you have nothing but time. Sorry, go ahead, Eli.
How many could he fill, like, during a quick rest?
Let's see. I could cast it up to 4 times per long rest. So, and I believe the last time that I cast it in the desert, Jeremy said I can only create half as much, so that would be 5 gallons per cast.
5 gallons per casting?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what you said.
4? Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah.
4 less. 5 less.
It should definitely still function. It just doesn't function as well here.
Yeah.
So it would be enough to say that he could refill all of our water skins whenever he casts it.
Yes. Yeah, if he's depleting his spells, if he's using all 4 of them, then he's creating 20 gallons effectively.
That's way more than I only need to do it once a day.
Well, yes. In the desert, most humanoids that are medium-sized probably consume about 2 gallons of water a day in order to stay
so twice a day
hydrated. So yes, and the horses are able to sustain themselves a little bit, especially with the help from Yabala's blessing bestowed upon them by Noctos. So you steadily make your way onward, though the desert is certainly taking its toll upon you. And about the time that you come into view of the mountains to the north, and a strange sight kind of lays out before you. You have crested this set of dunes, and down the opposite side, there's kind of a large swath of land that's flat, or at least mostly flat. And there, some ways away, probably about an hour's ride away, you see two familiar sights. Two ships parked alongside one another, still. And both of them are crawling with humanoids that appear to be engaged in conflict with one another. What do you do?
You said ships, right? Like sand ships or something?
Correct. One of the things that is somewhat prevalent here is there are ships that sail in the sand.
Cool.
They utilize usually slaves, referred to most of the time as wind callers, who are able to summon enough air into the sails of these ships to get them to operate.
Cool.
And they can sail on the sands the way that normal boats sail in the water.
Noctis is going to start casting light on, can get his hands on, to kind of camouflage us in the desert from their view. So we can get either by them or closer to them unseen. And you say familiar, how so?
Well, one of them has very distinct appearance. It was at one time a piece of a treasure hoard from your friend, the Glassblower, the ancient blue dragon. The ship that until very recently was captained by your now dead friend, Syviis. The other ship you recognize easily by its sails, as belonging to a man named Kaliba.
Damn, that means the dragon didn't find him.
A younger Noctis would say that we needed to take vengeance upon them, but we have a larger task at hand. However, they are in our path. What do you believe we should do? And for those of you not aware, the ship on the left is a man who stole it from us and left us to rot in the desert. The ship on the right is the one that was just stolen by the Ink of No. Excuse me.
What was that about, Rith?
I misspoke.
Shava is going to point at the ship on the left and say, "This is your ship?"
Aye. We were in the horde of a blue dragon, the Glassblower, and we needed a way out. And she had a ship, so we dismantled it and brought it out and pieced it back together, putting a large portion of her horde on the ship. And as we went to leave, the man that was ferrying us across the seas left us there and stole it all.
So this is a dragon ship.
I wouldn't say that. You do remember the dragon that crashed your camp, right?
Yes.
We stole that ship from her.
We should avoid this ship at all costs.
We should take the other ship.
I'm with Bot. I want revenge. That bastard left us to die. It's a good thing we had another ship to steal.
And I got those ships confused, actually. The one that we built was the one that Rith's friend stole, or Khalid's friend. Sorry.
So it was the one on the right, or it's a different ship entirely?
We were ferried to the Dragon Horde. Like, we paid a guy to take us across the desert, and then we loaded the Dragon Horde on his ship, and he was like, hey, thanks. I'll see you later. And then we crafted the ship from the Dragon Sword, and that's the one that we had been tooling around on that the Ink of Messhiba stole just now.
Gotcha.
Khalid.
You guys have some pretty bad luck with ships.
Now's not the time for vengeance or foolish decisions. Both of those ships are crawling with men. We can see them from here. I say we skirt around them and go on our ways. No reason to get caught up in a foolish battle that we can't win.
But at least 2 men out there deserve to die.
And many more than that. It doesn't mean we should throw our lives away for a chance at them.
But if we could take one ship, maybe we can escape.
We could get to our destination much faster.
Or we could die much faster. Either way.
We have Yobala on our side. We will not die this day.
You got me on your side. What more do you need?
And I don't know if you've noticed, but it's very uncomfortable for me to ride on a horse. I was
comfort is
faking
not
it
a concern
earlier.
of mine. I'd rather to have safety. An attack is foolish.
But if we take too long, we may not have safety. The god of the undead is able to rise once more. For now, he is just a child. But if they are able to finish their ritual, he may not stay that way. Time is probably of the essence.
And all jokes aside, Khalid, our horses have seen better days. We cannot ride them much harder.
I say if we had to take a ship, we start with Kaliba's ship, because the majority of his crew are wind mages that will likely not fight back.
They know y'all already.
I think from what I hear, distancing yourselves from the dragon's horde might be the best option as well.
I think we shouldn't lick a gift horse in the mouth.
Or we can hang back and let one of them finish off the other and steal the victor ship.
We sneak onto a ship? I could conjure a sandstorm to cover us.
I think we've had enough sandstorms for one day.
How about some fog? We can fog shit up.
I have no doubt that I could sneak onto a ship. You as well. However, looks over towards the other 3. Not so certain about their abilities to maneuver themselves as elegantly as you or I.
That is where the sands will help us.
If you can control this storm, I think that is a good idea. Sneak in cover of the sands.
And we could provide a distraction, those of us who are less elegant at sneaking.
I'm sure I will catch the eye of any who see me.
So at this point, Shava is going to touch her pendant and move her hand away from it, and it's going to spray sand out around all of us. And it's actually a pretty big, it gets kicked up. And as it goes around everyone, you notice that it's not actually like touching you. It's just an illusion, but it looks like all this sand is swirling around you. It's a 15-foot cube of it. So if we get in a tight enough thing, we can all fit inside, or just some of us could. A few of us could hide in here. Vat, if you think you would be you can hide inside as we go over.
I think that'd probably be the best option for me. I'm kind of large and black.
Very well.
And so is Kaliba.
But yes, I truly shine hand to hand with an opponent. So getting me to them is our best option in terms of my strengths.
So it sounds like the plan then is to use the cover of this sandstorm, this obscuring cloud of sand swirling about that Shava has summoned up, to make your way closer to these 2 ships worth of individuals fighting. The 5 of you begin your descent down the other side of these dunes towards the flat area where these ships are fighting. About the time that you reach the bottom slopes and begin to flatten out, all of you hear a sound, and some of you are familiar with it. You hear a very deep and flying low overhead, you see a large reptilian shadow, winged, fly overhead close enough that you hear the sounds of leathery wings flapping in the wind. And she, Bireshadjet, zooms over the tops of you. And as she nears these 2 ships fighting, she unleashes a lightning bolt from her mouth, cascading down upon these 2 ships worth of people. Parts of the ships exploding, people screaming, panic and mayhem sets in. And that is where we're going to end our session. So, everyone, thank you very much for tuning in this evening for session 11 of On the Rise. I had a ball. It's always a blast to run this game. I love this setting so much. It's so atypical for the usual D&D fare. Yeah, it's just a lot of fun to run, and it wouldn't be nearly as fun if I didn't have such phenomenal players to make it come alive. So I thank the 5 of you very, very much for bringing your A games. And before we go ahead and close everything out, now we'll do our intros. No, I'm just kidding. Our outros.
Did you just fuck that up on accident or on purpose?
Totally on purpose.
Okay.
That time it was on purpose. So we will go ahead and do our outros, and then I will wrap this up for this evening. So we will go ahead and start with Baron.
Total pleasure to be here. I had a lot of fun. Super happy to get to play with Eli again and Jeff again, and Michael and Trevor. Sorry, I'm actually used to Rift and not. I guess not. I lied. It was a pleasure to play with you both. I hope, and as far as I can tell, we'll be playing with you again. I'm over at RWD. Link should be posted. We do gaming shit. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, Baron. It's always a pleasure, man. I'm lucky enough to have you play in several of my games, and it's nice to finally have you in a campaign. So, yeah, I think you're a great addition to this group, and I'm looking forward to all the things that you're going to bring to the table with VAT. So, fantastic. All right, moving right along, Eli.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about this game we're about to play. Really looking forward to it. Can't wait to see what happens. I'm Eli. It was really great to be here. It was an awesome session. I'm really glad to be playing it. I remember when you first announced it, and I was like, oh, I don't think I'm going to be able to play in that. And here I am, living the big life. So good to be here. And yeah, I'm from the Mythic Gazetteer. We're about to publish the Blackwood Errantry Codex very, very soon, right around the corner. So keep an eye peeled on Drive Through RPG. And yeah, Jeremy, thanks for letting me play. And guys, it was great playing with you. I think all of you I've played with before, so really nice playing with you again.
Excellent. Yeah, Eli, it's always a pleasure to have you, man. I've known you for a long time, and it's great to be back in a campaign with you. Eli was one of the players in my Caldera game, and I played in his Blackwood campaign whenever it was still in its infantile testing stage. So that was a lot of fun. It's nice to finally see that kind of come full circle and to see it bear fruit. So I'm really excited. Okay, moving right along. Jeff, my partner in crime, or at least in podcasting.
Yes, I'm Jeff. As Jeremy said, I am part of the Dudes of Your podcast with Jeremy as the other member. So keep an eye out for more of that. I also have my own channel called Encounter Balance. It's mostly games, though I'm hoping to do some other types of videos here pretty soon. Although I've said that a million times, so we'll see if this is the time where it actually happens or not. Yeah, back-to-back nights of campaigning and Jeremy campaigns and back-to-back fun games. So pleasure as always to be here, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens.
Excellent. And yes, again, I've had the pleasure of playing with you, Jeff, in several games now, a lot, and it's always a lot of fun, man. I love the way that you play a lot of your characters. Although Khalid is not a spellcaster, particularly with spellcasting, man, you know how to do it, dude. It's always a lot of fun. And yes, definitely check out the Dudes of Yore. It's a brand new thing that we just started doing not that long ago. Our first and only episode thus far is out. Like Jeff said, go find it. SoundCloud, YouTube. Yeah, and hopefully we'll have some more of that very soon here in the future.
Pretty sure that podcast template for interest post got me in this game. So
there you go.
There you go.
Yep. Hopefully, yeah, there's a lot of useful information, and at the very least, hopefully it's entertaining. But yeah, go check it out. And going right back into it, Trevor.
Okay. I was figuring you were going to go with Mike first, since I'm going by the thing at the bottom of my screen. But I'll go first if you want. It is nice to see Bireshadjet this time. Vengeance is sweet. I've been waiting for several sessions for her to just come and take, Kaliba, just push, just waiting for that. Waiting to see it on the horizon. Finally, it has happened. He'll probably survive because he's good at that.
It's quite possible. We'll have to wait and find out until next month.
He'll crawl like the snake that he is.
Mm.
With that being said, I don't have any channels or books or games or advertisements to do because, I'm a hermit and I live at home. But definitely looking forward to next month's session because I have the one session. Why not look forward to it? 800 experience.
Yes, we will definitely hand out XP between this session and the next. But yeah, Trevor, yeah, it's always a lot of fun, man. I enjoy very much the way that you play Rith, and it's nice having, particularly now that that Sigrid is not played in the game any longer, having somebody who's not from the Baklan area, having an outsider who you kind of bring that perspective of all of this stuff being unusual and new, and it's a nice point of view character, and you do a really good job of, especially whenever you're doing the transformations and things that Rith goes through as his druidic powers allow him to. It's a lot of fun, and in the 11 sessions that we've been playing, it's been a pleasure for me to watch you kind of go from being a fairly new player and kind of go through a shift and a change. You've matured a lot as a player. And
I'm performing too.
It's a lot of fun.
Like life mimicking art.
Yeah, very much so. One of the joys of role playing. Okay, and last but certainly not least, we have Michael.
Jeremy, I just want to start off saying that you're a bastard, and you have to stop inviting me to this shit, because every time I play in one of these damn games, I have to wait forever to play in the other one, because it was so much fun. All I want to do is tomorrow, let's go ahead and just finish this out. And I'd like to dissolve our 16 years of friendship, and I'm out.
You're not used to it yet?
Nah, I'm just messing. Gotta leave them wanting more.
That's right. That's right. Storytelling 101, man. You gotta bait them, hook them, and then leave them hanging for a bit.
And Jeremy's a master baiter.
Oh, wow. I told you, kids. I told you. You had a warning at the very beginning of the show. And this is exactly what I was talking about. So thank you for coming.
Ah!
Oh, good Lord. All right. So with that all laid out, I've been Jeremy. This has been the Erasmus Expeditions and session 11 of On the Rise. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, fine gentlemen, for playing along in this game and making it worth doing this. This is absolutely made possible because you guys are able to make this so much fun, to make this rewarding. So from the bottom of my heart, I thank you. Thank you for people who may be watching this tonight and tuned in. For those of you who may be watching it later on, thank you very much. And until next time, may your dice roll high and your snacks always be within reach.